Hey guys, it's Elena. Today I wanted to show you how to paint a watercolor tulip in Procreate, and I was inspired by these gorgeous tulips that I bought the other day. I love how the red is sort of seeping into the yellow, so I wanted to try and achieve that. So this was my first attempt, and so we're going to try and do that again. And we will be using my amazing watercolor brush set, which is available for purchase in the link below, or you can also use any other watercolor brushes that you might have in Procreate as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to make a canvas that is 3000 by 2000 pixels. And to start out with, let's just get a color for our paper, maybe this gray color, and I will be using in the AJ Amazing Watercolor folder. I'm going to use cold pressed number 1 for a cold pressed paper texture. And if the size doesn't look quite right to you, if the grain is too big or too small for your canvas, you can just adjust it with this, with the size. And also, if you're not sure if you've covered everything, a good tip to check if you've covered it is just to go to your layers panel and have a look at this thumbnail, because sometimes you won't be able to see that you didn't actually cover part of it with the canvas. So you can check in here and make sure that it looks all uniform. So now that we've got the watercolor paper layer in there, I'm just going to leave that at normal blend mode, and I'm adding a new layer on top. And I'm going to try something a little bit different with this. Instead of doing a layer on top of this with paper as well, I'm going to change the blend mode of my drawing layer. So actually, let's go ahead and rename these. So this is the background paper, and this is my drawing layer. Okay, so I'm going to change the blend mode by tapping this N, and I'm changing it in this case to linear burn. And this means that whatever I draw on this layer, the background layer is going to show through and give us this nice paper texture on top of what we're drawing. So I will be using the W&N, or Winsor and Newton primary colors palette that comes with the brush set. And to start out with, I'm going to go ahead and draw the flower head first by using my yellow. And then I will just start out with my standard round smooth blend brush. So I can see that we've got petals that kind of go up and then down again, sort of like almost like a leaf. And there's quite a few of them on the inside and some on the outside. So I'm just going to experiment with this concept by drawing the petals similar to how I would draw leaves. Okay, so now I'm going to select this sort of pinkish red that seems to match this to me, and I'll switch brushes to my blooming line brush. And I'm not going to try to make it look just like this. This is just for inspiration, so this is going to be a lot messier. So I'll just take this blooming line brush and start to add some blooms going up in red. I'm going to select bright bloom accent as well and just mess around with adding some texture in red here. And now selecting the Directional Bloom Edger, still in red. I wanted to experiment with adding some red along the edges here. And I'm choosing the wet on wet just to add a bit more texture to this red here. So that's really big, so I'll make it small. I'm going to take the opacity down just a bit and do these petals on the inside as well. I wanted to take the directional bloom edger just one more time on this side to define it a bit more. Maybe also define these inner petals as well. Just as a final touch on top of here, I'm going to go back to the large dark bloom and select white. And keeping the brush size quite small, I'm just going to add a couple of little blobs here to make it look like I've dropped a bit of water on it to thin it out a bit. Alright, so now that the bloom is done, I've got this on its own layer here, and I'm just gonna use my arrow icon up here to move it over just a bit in order to have space for the stem and the leaves. So now I will select my standard round pressure lighter brush, and this one just has a bit more of a defined edge, especially when you're using enough pressure. So I will use this one with this sort of grayish green here to add the stem. Okay, so I'm going to start drawing the stem outside of the paper, and as it gets closer to the flower, I'm just pushing harder and harder so it's slightly stronger, slightly thicker up here. And then I'm going to make the brush a bit bigger in order to make these nice long leaves that you see here. So I'll start the leaf with light pressure and then get darker and darker, and then lighter again, light, and then darker and darker all the way down, and lighter towards the bottom. And then I'll make another one on the other side. I've noticed on here that we do have some yellowing, like on the tips of some of the leaves and then close to the flower on the stem. So I'm going to select my edge and blend brush, go back to the yellow, and start adding some yellow effects here and there. So I'm using very, very light pressure, which is why we don't see a hard line here. And if you're not sure if you're doing this smooth enough, you can always change the blend mode back to normal, and then you can really see, like for instance, I do actually have some lines in here I didn't want, so I'll do that again with the normal blend mode. And I'll just keep working with the normal blend mode until I'm ready to finish the piece. I'm actually going to choose one of my lighter yellows as well for this. Working with the edge and blend brushes is very much about just finessing it with the pressure. So it might take a little bit of practice just to learn how to have a really light touch in order to blend the edges out. And just think of it like having a little bit of watercolor right on the tip, a little bit of color right on the tip of your pen, but then just water comes out after that. So it's very much about just putting in a bit of color and then blending. And if you're not happy with how it looks, then you can always just keep on going. And the nice thing about changing the blend mode of the drawing layer to linear burn or to multiply, whatever you prefer. I think for this I prefer linear burn. But the nice thing about that is that it can sort of hide if you have a couple of seams or edges that you're not super happy about. So it's quite nice to just let that be a bit of a cover up some sins. But you know, I do like turning it to normal mode as well as I'm drawing sometimes, just to be able to spot, because it does hide things, so it's nice to be able to spot if I've made a mistake. And then when you turn that back on, then it's extra covered up if you did. So I'm going to go back to my green and add a couple of blooms on the leaves. So I'll just go back to my blooming line. And this one is very much just like if this leaf were still wet and I had a brush with paint on it, just kind of adding it, and you know how it sort of creeps out when it's wet. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do with this. Now I'm switching to my watercolor blenders folder, which also comes with the brush set, and using my wet on wet blender, I'm just going to blur a couple of selected areas so that it looks kind of like I dropped water on it. Okay, so I'm switching back to my amazing watercolor folder, and I wanted to add a bit of salt texture and then a bit of splatter, and then I think that we will be done. So selecting white with my salt brush, I'm just adding a little bit of texture here, just to selected areas. And then to finish it off, going to select the one that is called Light Splatter, back to my green, and just a bit here and possibly a bit here. So that's about it for this tutorial, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to send me a message or write in the comments below, and I will be happy to help you out. And if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future, please consider subscribing. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.